Welcome back to another Flipside chat where we talk all things family on our channel. It's your girl, Miss Tish, founder of the online mentorship program, Flipside. So today is going to be a very interesting topic. We are going to be delving into the differences between homeschooling versus traditional public, private, and charter schools. And in the meanwhile, going to be doing a little bit of myth busting while we're at it. So I'm very, very excited. I got tons of community engagement. I put a poll out just kind of asking like, hey, why did you choose to send your child to whatever education style you have them on right now? What path? And flooded. I need to shout out specifically Deltona. Shout out Deltona. Y'all guys, I promise you it was like 60, 70 I can't even. But the stories that you guys gave and like the transparency of it all was like just wow. And even on my personal page, I posted the same question and just like I realized more than ever before, like this really needs to be discussed. And so here I am today discussing it with you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first one that we're going to talk about is homeschooling. And so homeschooling is where your child does not go to the traditional school outside of the home. They are home. And the parent or guardian usually is with them to teach them and become their primary educator. So that's like the general definition of a homeschooling. But the myth about homeschooling that I really feel that needs to be busted is that homeschooling kids are socially awkward and not socialized whatsoever. That is not true. At least for most, for a lot. It doesn't have to be. Just because your child is at home when you learn, does that mean that your child is not going to be social? You can go out to parks. You can go and have them sign up for sports or dance or a lot of things. You can get them involved in a youth group if you're into church. There are homeschooling groups where actual parents and educators will come together and they kind of trade off on teaching, and that way your homeschool child is friends with the next one, and it's like a whole community. So they are not. Now I will say that I have personally watched at my church, I used to do a lot of the child care, and I could tell a difference between the homeschooled and some that went to a traditional school. But it wasn't because they were socially awkward. It was because they were actually a little bit more socially mature than ones that weren't. They weren't really as out there and wild in like the bad sense. Some of the kids would be super hyped up, but for these ones, I would say they had a lot more self-control. And that is one of the things that you need when you are homeschooling. You need self-discipline and you need self-control. So here are some of the drawbacks that I've heard from families of homeschooling. When I went through the comments, is that obviously one person is agreeing to be home to be the educator, so that can take a hit on the finances if it leads more of a strain on one person to provide, or more of a budget because you're not in a two-person household, like a two-person, two people aren't working, bringing in two different incomes. Okay, it's only one person. You have to have a lot of, like I said earlier, self-discipline and control to get you guys on a routine that works for your family. And it often requires a lot of grace because sometimes subjects can be hard, and if a child is not getting it, sometimes as the adult you can feel like maybe this is a reflection of you, or it can wear on some nerves a little bit, And so you have to have a lot of grace for yourself, grace for the child, grace for it all. And then the one that is home with the child all day long, being that sole teacher, it can be, from what I heard, like a little bit, I'm trying to see, I don't want to use the word weary, but it can wear on you. But the reward that I hear about from, and I'm telling you, comment after comment after comment after comment after comment of the reward factor of homeschooling, they say that it outweighs like the bad, the drawbacks, if you would. So what I was seeing in the comments, like I said, over and over and over again, was that homeschooling allowed for family bonding. Homeschooling allowed for flexibility. This one was my favorite one that I saw a lot, was that homeschooling like reinvigorated the child's love of learning, because you don't have to teach one way. You can teach in multiple different ways until you find your child's style. So if at schools, it might be they're more so visual. All right, so you take your notes, you see this, you read that, you this and that. But maybe your child is not a visual learner. Maybe they're more audio. Maybe they're more hands-on. Maybe there's different ways, and you get to like fine-tail it the way it works for you and your family. And so a lot of times when a homeschool child goes back into the school system, they're usually at a higher grade level than your typical traditional school. Now, I will say that I did see a comment where someone said that they homeschooled and that was all great, but it did have an effect on like college, like their test taking. Not that you don't have to have certain criteria for homeschooling, benchmarks, if you would, but it's just the way that they did the test taking and things like that. It was a little bit harder because the school does not cater to your learning style. So food for thought there. The next one that we're going to talk about is the most popular one, which is the traditional sense. We're going to talk about public school for a little bit. Now, public school, I think the myth about a lot of the public schools is that like they're not really there, like that the teachers or the admins are against the student and the parents, and there's like a line in the sand, or that it's complete and utter chaos. And you know what, you might not be right. There is a little bit of chaos in the school system, but I will say that in general, schools give structure. You have to be at this place at this time. The bell's gonna ring. You need to be in your seats. And then it's gonna ring again, and you need to get your stuff. You need to go to your next spot, and it's gonna, so forth and so on. You're gonna eat at this time. You have intramurals on these days. So you kind of have a very, very structured routine. And for those of you, like a lot of kids actually need structure in their lives, like school is something that can assist with that. So I do say that the chaos is probably from that might be the kids. The kids might be bringing a little bit of the chaos, and the school board might be bringing it in on a different side of the spectrum. And so it can be like a pressure cooker, if you would, but it does give structure. It shows diversity. Your kids are going to be exposed to people from different walks, learn from different people, and see different things. But I really think that the best thing is that the schools are not against your family. There is that line in the sand. I know there are some nuances. So like, let's say I personally know some moms, and matter of fact, I also was that mom whose child was being bullied, and go to the school for help, and it kind of becomes like a showdown, and it shouldn't be like that, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But I will also say that I have been on the at the meetings after school, where you get to get your parent involvement. Don't ask me why I'm thinking PTA, like the PTA board or whatever. And I will say the people that are there are more teachers than parents there. That's a really sad fact. Like, if like there's a saying that, like, if you got a seat at the table, at least show up, right? A lot of teachers are the ones that are showing up, and they're showing up after a really, really long shift. They're the ones staying, and they're the ones volunteering for a lot of these things. I love my kids' schools. They do the school dances, they do the book fairs, they do literacy week, they do like a lot of really cool things to engage with the families, and like have fun with the kids. They have skate night and like all of these wonderful things that would not be possible without, I would say, without parental involvement, yes, but without these hardworking staff members who care. So if you think the schools don't care, I would think that was a little bit of a myth. Some may be burnt out, some maybe this and that, but the reason they became educators is because they care about your child's education. So I hope that helps you understand some kind of like the myth busting of that, but also some of the good and the bad. Your kid's exposed to a lot more than they would be if they're home. And if your child doesn't really get something, you don't get to stay on it for a week, because you have the flow. It keeps going. Now, they may recommend you for tutoring and things like that, and the school will do what they can to help you not fall behind, but at the end of the day, they're not going to stop because you don't understand a subject. They have to keep going on with the show. And the one that really, I think, broke my heart the most is not a situation that I faced, but I've been seeing on two ends of the spectrum, where a lot of parents were saying that their child had a 504 plan or IEP, which is basically just like either a medical instructions or behavioral issue. Basically means that like there's a compensation or a consideration that is supposed to be given. And I know a lot of the families that were writing were saying that that was not happening, and that they felt like they had to be like the ultra advocate because their child is coming home, ashamed, or, not like certain things that were supposed to be respected. Now, I can't speak to that. I have not experienced that, but I have seen that in the comments. But at the same time, I've also seen one of my friends, Katrina, shout out girl, who told me that if it wasn't for the public school that she was in, that they really surrounded her child, and her child is thriving and excelling because of the community that not only is she, but the teachers are providing as well. So it's kind of I've seen it go both ways. As far as your charter and your magnet schools, so those are going to have smaller classes, which are great because the public schools can be very overcrowded. But they usually have smaller funding. So you have to be like very, very careful. Like the selections are a lot less than when they are in the public schools. My sister-in-law told me that she put her child in both a charter school and a magnet school, and she does prefer the magnet schools because usually those are something that are specialized. So my niece Olivia, shout outs. She goes to a school where at the end of it all, she would be like, I'm gonna say like, she would like have something going towards her degree for veterinarian or something like that. So again, not something mine are personally, and mine are in the public school system, but I do know that that was a great thing, that she does prefer that small, like I said, smaller classes, but with less funding, they have to fight a little bit harder. So something to consider. And then finally, we have the private schools where you get also smaller classes, excellent education. You don't have as much of the worries from the public school systems that you do in the private school, but you got to pay for that. That is thousands and thousands of dollars, worth it if you're able to. If you're not able to, there's lotteries that you might have to apply for and things like that. It's hurdles to jump. But usually they are a little bit more on the discipline side, and you're not going to catch as much unruliness. Now, not to say that it doesn't happen. Someone just commented on my platforms today and was just like, hey, I've had a child that went to a Christian academy and there were drugs there. And then I've had a child that went to a public school, and both of them are in the same college. One I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on, and they were still exposed to something that I didn't want them to be exposed to. And the other one, we went the traditional route, and I did not spend thousands of dollars yet, and both of them same degree in college. So I know it really is about, I think in anything you're at, these are like kind of final thoughts. I'm wrapping it up because I know this is a lot longer than I anticipated it being, but there was so much content that I can't tell you how touched I was by everybody. But there is a line between the families and any type of school system. Your homeschooling, publics, private, charter, magnet, and that's just really parental involvement across the board. Be involved with what your child is. Be involved in their education. And if that's not you becoming the educator, like maybe that's not in your wheelhouse or your ability, but you can still show up to those meetings, go to those conferences, ask your child, volunteer. These are all things that you can do to be in your life, to be in people's face and being like, I know your mama, I know your daddy. We will get them involved. We know that you are from a good home, from a good, good family, and like they're coming, So if you are messing up and making mistakes, it's you have a team to help you there, and it really makes a difference. Like across the board, it matters. You matter. So while I think that everything deserves like it's proper, like you really have to be informed, and whatever you are, because like education is important. It is important. But I know good things happen everywhere, bad things happen everywhere. Maybe it's a different dose of this and that. Everything has its advantages and drawbacks. But in all of it, I think everything should have you. That's my honest thought. That's like a resounding to the parents that pulled their kids from the public school or the private school or the this or the that, because they were their number one advocate. Bravo. So the parents that have their kids going into the traditional school systems and are still heavily involved and making sure that their child is the best that they can be and as supported as they can be, bravo. To the worn out ones out there, I feel you. Bravo. But this is what we signed up for. It's hard, but it's worth it. And so I guess I should say trust your gut. Do your research. Hopefully this video helps some. Let me know What kind of schooling do you guys give to your kids if you have them? Tell me the whys. I'm not here to debate you. I'm here. I respect you and I respect your opinion and I respect your family and I know that you're doing whatever is best for them. I'm just curious. I'm just curious. And let me know what you guys want me to talk about next. All right, guys. I will say I'll catch you on the flip side. Oh, yeah. Speaking of thumbs up, like, subscribe. I always forget that part. One day I won't.